Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Remember Amir Khan's super hit film Three Idiots? The theme song there was "Behti hawa sa tha wo, udti patang sa tha wo, kahan gaya use dhondo," because he keeps disappearing. Something similar has happened to the leader of a small country on the eastern edge of Asia. That is Kim Jong-un of North Korea. The whole world is searching for him. He's not been since April 11. Nobody seems to know where he is. There's a lot of speculation about him. Now, his country is only a country of 2.6 crore people. Its area is about the same as Bihar. Population is 1/4 of Bihar. It's a small country. It's also economic basket case. Does the world need to bother? Where is he? So does this line, kahan gaya use dhondo, even apply here? Because why should anybody search for him? Jane do jahan bhi gaya. But I will try and explain to you, because you are reading all these stories and watching all this speculation on Kim Jong-un, why North Korea is important for the rest of the world, including to India, and why nuisance states are something nobody can ignore. And what is a nuisance state? I will come to that. Now, Kim Jong-un is just 36 years old, born in 1984. He became the strongman, leader, marshal of his country, marshal of his armed forces at the age of 27. Why? Because he represents what should be today the longest serving dynasty, non-royal dynasty in the world. So his grandfather took over North Korea in 1948. After that, his father took over, Kim Jong-il, and then Kim Jong-un. So third generation of a non-royal dynasty. So unlike the Saudi dynasty, this is not royal, and unlike the British dynasty, this is not titular. That one has no powers. In this one, no one else has any power. This is a supreme leader, as much as you can see a supreme leader. In fact, he's called dear respected. Most people in North Korea would call him dear respected. His father was called dear leader. His grandfather was called the great leader. That is the kind of regime they have. Now, April 11 is the last time he was seen. After April 11, he's not been seen. So it's been a little over 2 weeks since he's gone missing. But the important thing is, April 15 came after that. April 15 is like the National Day of North Korea and also his grandfather's birth anniversary. But he was missing in that celebration, which never happens in Korea. And when that happened, it set tongues wagging. And papers in South Korea, which track North Korea very closely, they started talking about it. And there were speculations and reports that April 12 he had gone through heart surgery, which has gone wrong, and he's now fighting for life or maybe dead. And that's been going on since then. Since then, there's been a lot of speculation. Every major paper in the world has talked about this. Many websites have announced his death. CNN once said he was gravely ill. Donald Trump said just earlier this week that he knows how he is, he's not dead, and he knows how he is, but he can't tell you. Unlikely that Donald Trump knows something and won't tell you, or at least won't hint to you. So this is a great mystery that the whole world is trying to resolve. Now, first of all, don't write him off. Just because he's not been seen for a few days, don't think that he will not be found and that he's gone. So North Korean dictators have made a habit of making look all the wise people around the world like fools. His grandfather did it, his father did it, and he himself has done it. They've disappeared in the past, and speculations have come up, killed in a coup, assassinated by somebody, but they reappear a few days later. In fact, in 2014, Kim Jong-un also disappeared for some time, and there were speculations that he'd been killed or something awful had happened to him. But he reappeared a month later, carrying a walking stick, and his local media in North Korea, the real North Korean media, not what Arun Shourie calls North Korean media in India. His North Korean media said that all that had happened was that he'd had a sprain and he was recovering from a sprain. So these things have happened there, we don't know. It is a very closed country. Now, how close it is you have to figure out. It is so closed that today the combined power of South Korean intelligence, American intelligence, Japanese intelligence, nobody seems to know what has happened. It's a very closed, brutal system. How brutal it is, I'll give you an example. When his father died, speculation was that his father's brother-in-law, that is Kim Jong-un's uncle, will become either the ruler or the caretaker or a regent under whom he will learn. Bit like Bayram Khan to Akbar, because Akbar was so young at that point. No such thing happened. He took over at the age of 27. In fact, short of 27, he became the strongman of his country, was immediately called dear respected. Within 2 years, he had his uncle arrested, tried and convicted for treason, and then executed along with 2 of his aides. And how was he executed? He was executed by firing squad. Firing squad wasn't using AK-47s. Firing squad was using anti-aircraft guns. So their bodies were blown to smithereens, and once that was done in full view of thousands of people, once that was done, soldiers then used flamethrowers to burn those bodies. So nothing was left of them. That is the kind of brutal system it is. I'm not quoting from some mythology or some hearsay. This is from a book, a definitive book called Son-in-Law of Theocracy, because his uncle was a son-in-law of the dynasty, of the ruling dynasty, by an author called Ra Jong-il, and New York Times carried a long story based on this book, which I am sharing with you. You can see that story. So in that country, very little comes out. That's why nobody knows anything. People are somebody saying his sister will take over, others say sister is only 32, but the fact is that he was only 27 when he took over. Then it is said that, oh, but this is a patriarchal society, will they accept a woman, that to a young woman? But then in 1966, India was also a patriarchal society. India accepted Indira Gandhi. Not similar situations and not similar systems, but in India at least people had a lot more to say, even the Congress party. So once again, it is not something that you can rule out. The important thing is, why should we bother? Why should the rest of the world bother? What is North Korea? North Korea, as I said, the size of Bihar in area, 1/4 the population of Bihar, 2.6 crores. If anything, South Korea is 5.2 crore population, or a little more, which is twice as big as North Korea. Its area is a little bit less. It's now a rich country. It's an industrially developed country. It's a country that's part of global supply chains. It's a country in which the world has a great deal of stake. So why are we bothered about this basket case, North Korea? Now, there are reasons for that. North Korea saw great value destruction and wealth destruction because of not just communism, but its own kind of communism. It is the only truly classical dictatorship in the whole world just now. Kind of dictatorship you see in the movies. Now, when the country split between 1950-53, when the two factions went to war, Korea has a history very much like Germany's, because Korea was under Japanese occupation, and when Allied forces came in to liberate Korea, the Russians came in from one side, Soviets came in from one side, the Americans came from the other side, and they stopped somewhere in the middle, which means just as Germany got divided, Korea also got divided. But unlike in Germany, now the two factions fought to claim which was the real Korea. So first it was the North Koreans fighting under Kim Il-sung, and South Koreans, they had some Western support, Americans, but also UN forces came in. And then the Americans came in more actively. So on the side of the North, the Chinese came in more actively. And it was much easier for the Chinese because they were next door. China has a long border with North Korea, and that went on for nearly 3 years. 2.5 million people died. And can you imagine? It was just after the World War, after the Second World War. And then there was an armistice. No real settlement or a peace deal, but a ceasefire whereby the two countries exist in a state of non-war, non-peace. So at that point, North Korea was much more developed economically, than South Korea. But in the course of time, Kim Il sung and then his son destroyed North Korea's economy and it faced sanctions and things. And South Korea, on the other hand, became the real powerhouse of Asia to rival Japan in many areas. All the stuff that we get, which is Korean, Samsung, LG, etc., it comes from South Korea. So why should we bother about North Korea? Because while all other economies, skills declined in North Korea, it specialized in developing one, and that was missile making. Now, how did that happen? One, it inherited Eastern Bloc's missiles, that is from Soviet Union and China. Second, just as Chinese learned to reverse engineer Soviet origin missiles, North Korea learned to re-engineer Chinese origin missiles because most North Koreans were educated in China, they were trained in China, including their engineers. So they became very good at making these missiles. That became their main export, illegal export, but an export. In fact, many of the countries which are seen as a nuisance around the world now, which have used these missiles, not nuclear missiles, have bought them from North Korea. Among its major recipients, and for us the most important recipients, was Pakistan. So when Abdul Qadir Khan developed his nuclear weapons in Pakistan, nuclear warheads, he needed a vehicle to carry those warheads. Pakistan had not reached anywhere in missile making. So he reached out to North Korea, and North Korea sold him their missiles. Now you might say, as the folklore is, that North Korea was so desperate for food at that point that they would sell missiles in exchange for shiploads of rice. But it's quite possible that it wasn't just rice, because much revelation has come out about Abdul Qadir Khan subsequently, and we know that he was also doing a lot of nuclear trading. So it's quite possible that he bartered some of the nuclear weapons technology or maybe even enriched fissile material with North Korea in exchange for missiles and missile technology. In the process, one had the warheads, got the missile, the other had the missiles, got the warhead. So today, North Korea is acknowledged and accepted to be accepted as in terms of the status, nuclear weapons power. When you talk of North Korea, you presume that it has nuclear weapons and it has pretty good missiles. In fact, it now has missiles where it's claiming that it has the ability to reach some parts of America. Now, how does this work? We started in the very beginning, I had mentioned the concept of a nuisance state. So what is a nuisance state? A nuisance state is one which does not have big economic power, does not have big power of any kind, but has a very big ambition. And for that ambition, it needs two things. One, a dictatorial continuing regime, and second, weapons of mass destruction. Reminds you of somebody? Reminds you of a country next door to us? That's Pakistan. So one continuing dictatorial power, which is the Pakistani army and establishment, and nuclear weapons. With that, you can punch above your weight. So what is Pakistan's blackmail with the world? It is not that they will nuke Israel. It's not an Islamic bomb. It is that if you cross an imaginary line somewhere, we might go and nuke some part of India. Then whatever happens in response will happen in response, but the rest of the world will have to deal with that mess. So that is how a nuisance state works. That is precisely how North Korea is working now, because North Korea has sanctions. Along with Iran, it's one of the two fully sanctioned states, also sanctioned under FATF, blacklist, state supporting terrorism. So they are now saying that either you listen to us or we'll continue testing these missiles. You know that Trump has had two summits with Kim Jong-un. Trump has called him his great friend. He's shaken hands with him, exchanged letters with him. He really wanted to check this box in his current tenure that he has now brought the North Korea problem in control, but it does not happen. Because just as Pakistan's blackmail would be that whatever you do to it, it can take revenge on India. North Korea's is not that it can take revenge on South Korea. It can, because South Korea is an American ally or a Western ally. It may not do it because it still considers South Korea part of the same country, and there are separated families on both sides, but it can threaten Japan, which is a much more important ally of the Americans. So that is why this country cannot be ignored. Now you might ask me about more examples of nuisance states. This is only two. So I will tell you, just think, if Iraq, Syria, Venezuela, Idi Amin when he ran Uganda, if they had nuclear weapons, how would they have behaved? Or think about it. If Iran actually gets the nuclear weapons, because that's another nuisance state, again a blacklisted state, that state also has ambitions and wants to punch above its weight in terms of its rivalry with the Arab states in the Islamic world. It's doing funny things in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, in many parts of the world. If it had nuclear weapons, it would then tell you that if you cross the line with me, I will threaten Israel. And if I threaten Israel, that is your ally, you will have to do something about it. That's the reason there is such concern about Iran's nuclear weapons and Iran's uranium enrichment program. Once again, think about it. I mean, from another angle, if Ukraine had kept some of the nuclear weapons after the Cold War ended and it broke away from Soviet Union, would Putin have been able to walk into Crimea and take it over and annex it? So all these things are important. So some states use nuclear weapons as deterrence. That's why the rest of the world is not so worried about India's nuclear weapons or even Israel's undeclared nuclear weapons. But the rest of the world is worried about these unstable states with limited means, with less of a vested interest in being stable, growing, etc., but with ambitions of punching way above their weight. That is North Korea under Kim Jong-un. And that's why you worry what will happen to North Korea, because North Korea now is presumed to be having nuclear weapons as well as the nuclear missiles. Now I'll end this with a story. The story is, and I'm making the point, what happens if a troublesome ruler in a nuisance state gets nuclear weapons. So in 1980, co-authors Dominic Lapierre and Larry Collins wrote a novel called The Fifth Horseman. Now, it's the same authors who wrote O Jerusalem and Freedom at Midnight, which are non-fiction books, but they've also written some fine fiction. So this was a very, very famous work of fiction, a big bestseller, The Fifth Horseman being fear. So the plot there is how Gaddafi gets a bunch of terrorists to plant. Gaddafi gets a small nuclear weapon and gets a bunch of terrorists to plant it in Manhattan in a basement, and then tells the rest of the world, especially America, that get the Israelis to vacate all the occupied territories or this bomb will go off and all of Manhattan will be written off. Of course, it was a novel. No such thing happened. But later once, there was an interview, and I think it was an interview by Oriana Fallaci, the famous Italian interviewer, when she asked Gaddafi about this book and whether he had read it. And Gaddafi apparently smiled and said, yes, it's a good idea. And if it happens someday, you will know who gave me the idea. So that is a part apocryphal story, but it also underlines to you why the rest of the world has a stake in countries like this and why we need to know where Kim Jong-un is.